Antares' arrogant laughter echoed through the United Earth Gravity Research Institute's halls, his words dripping with condescension as he mocked humanity's greatest scientific achievement. Dr. Bobby Henry gritted his teeth, forcing a polite smile as the Tholian ambassador dismissed Earth's gravity as pathetically weak compared to his homeworld. If only the smug alien knew the truth behind the Institute's unassuming facade. For years, Dr. Henry and his team had toiled in secrecy, developing gravity manipulation technology that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Born from the desperate need to defend Earth against alien threats, their research had yielded terrifyingly potent results. As Antares and his delegation continued their tour, blissfully unaware, a lab assistant pulled Dr. Henry aside, her face pale with dread. "Sir, we've detected Tholian gravity generators hidden across the globe," she whispered urgently. "They're trying to destabilize our infrastructure." Dr. Henry's blood ran cold. He had to act fast, navigating the diplomatic minefield while rallying his team to weaponize their gravity tech. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and failure meant subjugation under Tholian rule. As the tour concluded, Dr. Henry found himself at a crossroads, his pacifist ideals warring with the grim necessity of turning his life's work into an instrument of war. The clock was ticking, and the fate of Earth rested on his shoulders. In the face of annihilation, would humanity's mastery of gravity prove to be its salvation or its undoing? In the bowels of the United Earth Gravity Research Institute, Dr. Henry and his team worked with feverish intensity, poring over the alien gravity generator schematics. Sweat beaded on their brows as they reverse-engineered the complex Tholian technology, unraveling its secrets layer by painstaking layer. "My God!" Dr. Henry breathed as the full scope of the generator's destructive potential became clear. "Localized gravitational anomalies. They could crush a city block like an empty soda can." He turned to his lead engineer, a wiry woman named Jenna, her eyes shrewd behind wire-rimmed glasses. "How quickly can we adapt this into a focused weapon?" Jenna frowned at her tablet, fingers flying over the screen. "With the right resources, maybe a week. But Bobby, the power we're talking about here." "I know," Dr. Henry's heart made, "but we don't have a choice. Get it done." As Jenna rallied the team, Dr. Henry ducked into his office and placed an encrypted call. The stern face of General Marcus Steele, all hard lines and unyielding eyes, flickered onto the screen. "Bobby, been a while." "Marcus, I need your help. The Tholians have gravity weapons planted across the globe." Dr. Henry laid out the evidence in terse, urgent tones. The general's stony visage betrayed no hint of surprise. "Send me everything you've got. I'll mobilize the fleet." He paused, his gaze sharpening. "But understand this, Bobby. If we do this, there's no going back." Dr. Henry swallowed hard and nodded. The screen went dark, and he sagged back in his chair, the weight of his choices bearing down like a physical force. In the days that followed, a deadly chess match unfolded behind a veneer of strained diplomacy. Dr. Henry and Ambassador Antares circled each other in a dance of feigned pleasantries, each probing for weakness while their respective teams scrambled for supremacy. When Zara slipped into the lab disguised as a janitor, Jenna caught the glint of a hidden camera and lured the Tholian operative into an empty storage room. The short, brutal struggle left Zara unconscious in a supply closet, but the damage was done. Antares knew of the human gravity weapon. Undaunted, Dr. Henry redoubled his efforts, pushing his team to their limits as they raced to construct the prototype. In orbit, General Steele marshaled his forces, preparing for a confrontation that felt more inevitable by the hour. Late one night, in the quiet of his lab, Dr. Henry stared at the sleek metal cylinder taking shape before him, a weariness born of more than physical exhaustion etched into his features. Jenna found him there, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "Having second thoughts?" she asked softly, pressing a mug into his hands. Dr. Henry sighed, his gaze never leaving the weapon. "Just wondering if I'll be able to live with myself when this is over." Jenna laid a hand on his shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong. "You're doing what needs to be done. For Earth. For all of us." Dr. Henry managed a tight smile, but the shadows in his eyes remained. He drained his mug and stood rolling up his sleeves. Let's run the final calibrations. We test at dawn. As the lab hummed to life around them, Dr. Henry couldn't shake the sense that he was standing on the edge of an abyss, staring into a grim and uncertain future. But with the specter of annihilation looming over the planet he'd sworn to protect, he knew there could be no turning back. The gravity of his choices had never felt so heavy. The prototype gravity weapon hummed to life, its sleek casing vibrating with awe-inspiring power. Dr. Henry stood behind a reinforced blast shield, his fingers hovering over the activation switch. He locked eyes with General Steele, who gave a curt nod. "Initiating test sequence," Dr. Henry announced, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. The underground facility fell silent as the weapon fired. A shimmering distortion rippled through the air, enveloping the target. A decommissioned main battle tank. Metal groaned and buckled as invisible forces compressed the vehicle. In seconds, the tank imploded, collapsing into a dense cube no larger than a filing cabinet. General Steele's eyes widened. "Impressive, Doctor. How soon can we deploy?" Before Dr. Henry could respond, alarms blared. Security feeds showed Zara, the Tholian operative they'd captured earlier, sprinting through the corridors. She clutched a data drive, leaving unconscious guards in her wake. "Damn it!" Dr. Henry smacked his head on the console. "She must have escaped during the test. We need to—" "My team will handle it," Steele interrupted, already barking orders into his comm unit. "Focus on the weapon, Doctor. We need more, and we need them fast." Over the next 72 hours, Dr. Henry's lab became a hive of feverish activity. Engineers and physicists worked in shifts, refining the gravity weapon's design. They miniaturized components, improved targeting systems, and boosted power efficiency. Jenna approached Dr. Henry, her tablet displaying a complex network of orbital trajectories. "We've cracked it," she said, eyes bright with exhaustion and triumph. "This satellite array will give us pinpoint accuracy on a global scale." Dr. Henry nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "Excellent work. Now we just need to—" The lab door burst open. Director Nathaniel Rook strode in, his face a mask of unyielding commitment. "We're out of time," he announced. "Our intel suggests the Tholians are preparing for a coordinated strike. Multiple gravity generators, strategically placed to cripple our infrastructure." Dr. Henry's blood ran cold. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe hours." Rook's piercing gaze swept the room. "What's our play, Doctor?" Dr. Henry straightened, years of scientific caution warring with the urgent need for action. "We go to the Council, present our findings, our weapon, push for immediate approval to strike first." The next few hours passed in a blur of classified briefings and heated debates. Dr. Henry laid out the gravity weapon's capabilities, while General Steele outlined a daring plan to neutralize the Tholian threat. The council chamber buzzed with tension as arguments flew back and forth. Finally, the council president rose. "The motion passes," she declared. "You have authorization to proceed, General. May God have mercy on us all." As they filed out of the chamber, Dr. Henry caught a glimpse of Ambassador Entres. The Tholian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something, fear, anger, crossing his alien features before he turned away. Back at the lab, Dr. Henry supervised the final preparations. Portable gravity weapons were loaded onto stealth transports, destined for elite commando teams. He watched the feed as the first units deployed, striking at Tholian installations with surgical precision. Initial reports were promising. Several alien gravity generators had been neutralized, their threat eliminated. But the cost was high. Casualty reports trickled in, each one a stark reminder of the lives at stake. Dr. Henry allowed himself a moment of hope. Perhaps they could end this before— The lab rocked with a massive explosion. Alarms screamed as smoke filled the air. Through the chaos, Dr. Henry spotted a familiar figure, Zara leading a team of Tholian infiltrators. "Protect the prototype," he shouted, diving for cover as energy weapons sizzled overhead. The firefight was brutal and swift. Dr. Henry crawled toward the prototype, desperate to save their work. He reached for the device just as Zara appeared, her weapon trained on his head. Time seemed to slow. Dr. Henry's fingers brushed the prototype's casing. Zara's finger tightened on the trigger. A blinding flash, a deafening roar. When the smoke cleared, Dr. Henry found himself sprawled on the floor, ears ringing. The prototype lay in pieces beside him, its delicate components scattered and sparking. Zara and her team were gone, leaving destruction in their wake. Jenna helped him to his feet, her face streaked with soot and worry. "Bobby, what do we do now?" Dr. Henry surveyed the devastated lab, his mind racing. They'd lost the prototype, but the plans remained. They had other weapons deployed, but not nearly enough. And somewhere out there, the Tholians were preparing to strike. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. We rebuild, we adapt, and we pray we're not too late. Dr. Henry blinked through the haze of smoke and debris, his ears still ringing from the explosion. The prototype lay in ruins around him, months of work reduced to twisted metal and sparking circuits. Jenna helped him to his feet, her face a mask of dedication. "We need to move," she said, pulling him towards the emergency exit. "More Tholians could be coming." They stumbled into the hallway, alarms blaring and emergency lights casting eerie red shadows. General Steele's voice crackled over the intercom, ordering an immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel. "Dr. Johnson," Henry called out, spotting his lead assistant helping another scientist to her feet. "Maya, over here." The four of them made their way through the chaos, dodging panicked researchers and security personnel rushing to defend key areas of the facility. As they reached a junction, the distinctive whine of Tholian energy weapons erupted from a nearby corridor. "This way," Jenna shouted, pulling them down a maintenance shaft. They crawled through cramped service tunnels, the sounds of battle growing more distant. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a deserted parking garage. "We need to split up," Henry said, his mind racing. "Maya, you're with me. Jenna, get the others to safety and contact General Steele. Tell him we're going dark." Jenna nodded grimly. "What's the plan?" "We keep working," Henry replied. "Find us when you can. And Jenna, be careful." As Jenna's group sped away in a requisitioned vehicle, Henry and Maya commandeered an unmarked van. They drove in tense silence, taking a circuitous route to shake any potential pursuit. "Where are we going?" Maya asked, her fingers flying over a tablet, securing their digital trail. Henry's squeezing hardened on the steering wheel. "I have a friend, someone who can help us stay off the grid." Hours later, they pulled up to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. A figure emerged from the shadows, Director Nathaniel Rook, his face grim. "I heard what happened," Rook said, ushering them inside. "How bad is it?" Henry sighed. "We lost the prototype, but the plans are safe." He tapped his temple. "Up here." Rook nodded. "I've got a space set up. It's not much, but it's secure. My people will get you whatever you need." Over the next few days, Henry and Maya worked feverishly in their makeshift lab. Rook's network of operatives kept them supplied and informed. The news was grim. Tholian gravity generators were wreaking havoc across the globe. Power grids failed, buildings collapsed, and entire city blocks were rendered uninhabitable. General Steele coordinated a desperate defense, deploying the handful of completed gravity weapons to strategic locations. They managed to neutralize several Tholian installations, but it wasn't enough. On the fifth day, an unexpected visitor arrived at their hidden sanctuary. Zara, the Tholian operative, stood before them with her hands raised. "I want to help," she said, her alien features unreadable. Henry's hand inched toward the makeshift gravity disruptor at his belt. "Why should we trust you?" Zara's multifaceted eyes gleamed. "Because I have information that will save your world. The Tholians plan to detonate a gravitational singularity bomb over Earth. It will render your planet uninhabitable." Henry exchanged a look with Maya. The implications were staggering. "Tell us everything," he said. As Zara revealed the full extent of the Tholian plan, Henry's mind raced with possibilities. They needed more weapons, a way to counter the bomb, and a strategy to take the fight to the Tholians. "We can't do this alone," Maya said, voicing Henry's thoughts. He nodded. "Rook, can you get a message to General Steele? We need to recruit every scientist and engineer we can trust. It's time to build an army." Over the next weeks, their hidden lab grew into a bustling command center. Brilliant minds from around the world joined their cause, working around the clock to mass-produce gravity weapons and develop countermeasures against the Tholian bomb. As Earth's cities burned and millions sought shelter underground, Henry stood before a hollow display of the solar system. Tholian ships swarmed in high orbit, preparing for their final assault. "Status report," he barked. Maya's fingers danced across her console. "Gravity weapon production is at 85% capacity. General Steele reports our orbital defense grid is online and ready for deployment." Henry nodded, studying the tactical display. Earth's military forces were arrayed in a desperate defensive formation, ready to make their last stand. "Sir," a young technician called out, her voice tight with tension, "we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the Tholian fleet. They're preparing to move." Henry took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle to come. "This is it, people. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours. Let's show these Tholians what humanity is made of." As klaxons blared and personnel rushed to their stations, Henry caught Maya's eye. No words were needed. They both knew the stakes. With a nod, they turned their attention to the unfolding confrontation in Earth's orbit, where the fate of their world would soon be decided. The command center erupted into action. Dr. Henry's voice cut through the chaos, issuing rapid-fire orders. "Maya, coordinate with General Steele. I want every gravity weapon we have ready for deployment. Zara, we need details on the Tholian fleet's formation." Zara's multifaceted eyes glinted as she interfaced with the hollow display. A three-dimensional map of Earth's orbit materialized, dotted with red icons representing the Tholian ships. "Their formation is tight," she reported. "The flagship, likely carrying the gravity bomb, is here." A pulsing marker appeared at the center of the swarm. General Steele's gruff voice crackled over the comm. "Operation Countergravity is a go. Orbital platforms are primed and awaiting your signal, Doctor." Dr. Henry took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the command console. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute." The hollow display lit up as Earth's orbital defense grid unleashed a coordinated barrage. Beams of concentrated gravitational energy lanced out, striking the Tholian ships with pinpoint accuracy. The effect was immediate and devastating. Tholian vessels spun out of control, their artificial gravity systems disrupted. Inside the command center, Zara's translator crackled with panicked Tholian communications. "They're in disarray," Maya reported, her eyes fixed on the tactical readouts. "Commander Volric is attempting to regroup, but our weapons are overwhelming their defenses." Dr. Henry nodded grimly. "Time for Phase 2. Prepare the shuttle." Minutes later, Dr. Henry led a small strike team aboard a sleek, gravity-shielded craft. As they launched into the chaos of Earth's orbit, the full scale of the battle became apparent. Disabled Tholian ships drifted aimlessly, while Earth's forces pressed their advantage. The shuttle weaved through the debris field, closing in on Volric's flagship. 30 seconds to contact," the pilot announced. Dr. Henry checked his gravity disruptor one last time. "Remember, our primary objective is the bomb. We neutralize it at all costs." The shuttle shuddered as it breached the flagship's hull. Alarms blared as the strike team disembarked, immediately engaging Volric's guards in the zero-gravity combat. Dr. Henry activated his magnetic boots, using short bursts from his gravity weapon to propel himself through the corridors. "This way!" Zara called out, leading them deeper into the ship's core. They fought their way through waves of Tholian defenders, using their mastery of gravity manipulation to devastating effect. Bodies floated in their wake as they pushed toward the ship's central chamber. Suddenly, a bone-deep vibration shook the entire vessel. Dr. Henry's blood ran cold as he recognized the telltale signs of a gravity bomb's activation sequence. "Volric's initiated the countdown," he shouted. "We need to move." They burst into the central chamber, a cavernous space dominated by a pulsing sphere of absolute darkness. Dr. Henry's scientific mind reeled at the sight. "A captured black hole," he breathed. "The energy output is impossible." Zara interfaced with the bomb's control systems, her fingers a blur. "We can't disarm it," she reported, her voice tight with tension. "The gravitational forces are beyond our ability to contain. Dr. Henry's mind raced, calculating variables and potential outcomes. A plan formed, born of desperation and scientific intuition. "We need to implode it," he declared, "create a gravitational slingshot effect using our shuttle's drive." As his team worked feverishly to rig the bomb, Dr. Henry's gaze was drawn to the viewing port. Earth hung there, blue and fragile against the void of space. He thought of Jenna, of all they'd sacrificed to reach this moment. "It's ready," Maya announced, snapping him back to the present. Dr. Henry nodded, a strange calm settling over him. "Get to the escape pods. I'll pilot the shuttle." Protests erupted, but he silenced them with a look. "There's no time to argue. Go!" As his team reluctantly retreated, Dr. Henry took the controls of the shuttle. With precise calculations, he maneuvered the craft into position, the gravitational forces already threatening to tear the ship apart. "Initiating slingshot maneuver," he announced over the comms. "It's been an honor serving with you all." With a final push of the throttle, Dr. Henry sent the shuttle hurtling toward the heart of the Tholian fleet, the unstable gravity bomb in tow. As the singularity reached critical mass, he closed his eyes, thoughts of Earth, of home, filling his mind. The resulting implosion consumed Volrick's forces in a maelstrom of warped space-time. Earth's defenders watched in awe as the Tholian fleet vanished, leaving behind only scattered debris and the fading echoes of a gravitational shockwave. In the command center, General Steele's voice broke the stunned silence. We did it. Earth is safe." Cheers erupted, but Maya's eyes remained fixed on the spot where Dr. Henry's shuttle had last been seen. A tear slid down her cheek as she whispered, "At what cost?" As the gravity of their victory settled in, the survivors began to grapple with the enormous consequences of their actions. The Tholian threat was neutralized, but the power they had unleashed upon the galaxy was beyond anything humanity had wielded before. Ambassador Antares, once proud and defiant, was led into the command center in restraints. General Steele's voice was cold as he outlined the terms of the Tholian surrender. "Your Empire's gravity weapons program will be dismantled. A new trade agreement will be established on our terms." Antares's alien features twisted in a mixture of rage and defeat. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed. "The forces you've unleashed." "We understand perfectly," Maya interrupted, her voice steady despite her grief. "And we'll bear the responsibility for what comes next." As the command center buzzed with activity, coordinating relief efforts and securing the hard-won peace, a junior technician approached Maya with wide eyes. "Ma'am, we're detecting an anomalous gravity signature at the edge of the solar system. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Maya's heart raced as she studied the readouts. Could it be? Was there a chance? "Get me General Steele," she ordered, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. "We may not be done yet." Maya's heart pounded as she stared at the anomalous gravity signature on the screen. Before she could fully process the implications, the command center erupted into chaos once more. "Incoming transmission from United Earth Defense Command," a technician announced, his voice cutting through the din. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of Admiral Trask. His eyes swept across the assembled staff before settling on Maya. "Dr. Johnson, your presence is required immediately. We're convening an emergency council to address the fallout from our victory over the Tholians." Maya nodded, her mind racing. "Understood, Admiral. I'll be there within the hour." As she prepared to leave, Maya cast one last glance at the readout, showing the strange gravity signature. She committed the data to memory, determined to investigate further when time allowed. The journey to UEDC headquarters was a blur of flashing emergency lights and cheering crowds. Earth's population celebrated their salvation, blissfully unaware of the new dangers looming on the horizon. Maya stepped into the council chamber, immediately sensing the tension in the air. Admiral Trask stood at the head of the table, his posture rigid as he addressed the assembled leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, our victory has come at a price. We now possess technology capable of reshaping the very fabric of space-time. The question before us is simple. What do we do with it?" General Steele's gravelly voice cut through the murmurs. "The answer is clear. We use this advantage to secure humanity's place in the galaxy, No more cowering before alien threats. Maya opened her mouth to object, but a commotion at the chamber entrance interrupted her. A tall, willowy figure with iridescent skin strode into the room, flanked by security personnel. Admiral Trask's eyes narrowed. Varn Caleris. I wasn't aware the Arcturians had been invited to this meeting. The alien scientist's multifaceted eyes glinted as he spoke, his words translated by a small device at his throat. I invited myself, Admiral. My people have a vested interest in the outcome of your deliberations. Caleris produced a small holographic projector, activating it with a gesture. The image of a sleek, curved device appeared, pulsing with barely held back energy. Behold the Arcturian gravity disruptor, not as crude as your human weapons, but no less potent. The council chamber erupted into shocked whispers. Maya felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full implications of Caleris's revelation. Admiral Trask's voice cut through the noise. Are you threatening us, Caleris? The Arcturian scientist's expression remained impassive. Merely ensuring balance, Admiral. Should Earth choose to maintain its gravity arsenal, rest assured that this technology will find its way to other powers in the galaxy. As the argument intensified, Maya's mind raced. The gravity weapons had saved Earth, but at what cost? The ethical implications of wielding such power caused great concern on her conscience. She stood, her voice cutting through the heated debate. We can't keep these weapons. The risks are too great. General Steele rounded on her, his face flushed with anger. And leave ourselves defenseless? Doctor, you of all people should understand the threat we face. Before Maya could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A young lieutenant burst into the chamber, his face pale. Sirs, we have a situation. Ambassador Antares has escaped custody, and there's more. The lieutenant's words faded into the background as Maya's mind reeled. She thought of the anomalous gravity signature, of Zara's unexpected disappearance, and of the terrible power they had unleashed upon the galaxy. As the council descended into chaos, Maya steeled herself for the challenges ahead. The battle against the Tholians had been won, but a new war, one fought with singularities and warped space-time, was just beginning. Maya's revelation as the whistleblower sent shockwaves through the council chamber. Admiral Trask's face contorted with fury as he processed the betrayal. Guards, detain Dr. Johnson immediately! As security personnel moved to apprehend her, Maya raised her hands in surrender. I did what I had to do. The public deserves to know the truth about these weapons. Before the guards could reach her, the chamber's main screen flickered to life. President Elizabeth Cruz's stern visage filled the display, her voice cutting through the chaos. Stand down, Admiral. Dr. Johnson will not be arrested. A hush fell over the room as Cruz continued. I am invoking emergency powers effective immediately. The gravity weapon arsenal will be deployed to bolster our planetary defenses. We cannot afford to appear weak in the face of these new threats. Maya's heart sank as she watched Cruz outline her strategy of deterrence through overwhelming force. The president's words were met with nods of approval from many of the military leaders present, but Maya could only see the path to destruction they were embarking upon. As the meeting adjourned, Maya slipped away, her mind racing. She had to find a way to stop this escalation before it was too late. Hours later, Maya sat in a dimly lit cafe, her hands wrapped around a cooling mug of coffee. Across from her, journalist Logan Rhodes leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. This is explosive stuff, Dr. Johnson. Are you sure about this? Maya nodded, sliding a data chip across the table. Everything's there. The singularity risks, Cruz's plans, all of it. The public needs to know what's really at stake. As Rhodes pocketed the chip, the cafe's view screen erupted with breaking news. Footage of massive protests filled the screen, crowds chanting and waving signs denouncing gravity weapons. It's working, Maya breathed, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over her. But their moment of hope was short-lived. The broadcast cut to a scene of destruction. A neutral world's capital city in ruins, fires raging amidst toppled skyscrapers. The newscaster's voice trembled as she reported, We're receiving confirmation that the attack was carried out using gravity weapons aboard an Earth battlecruiser. The vessel was allegedly hijacked by a group of Arcturian extremists, led by an individual known only as Vorian. Maya's blood ran cold. This was exactly the kind of escalation she had feared. Across the galaxy, in a hidden laboratory, Ambassador Antares watched the news with grim satisfaction. Beside him, Dr. Zillion Kresh tinkered with a device no larger than a briefcase, its core pulsing with ominous energy. "Your portable singularity projectors are a work of art, Doctor," Antares purred. "Soon the humans will learn the true meaning of fear." Kresh's eyes gleamed with a mixture of madness and pride. "Indeed, and with these, we'll bring their precious colonies to their knees." As they plotted their revenge, neither noticed the silent figure of Zara slipping away from her hiding spot, her loyalties once again tested by the weight of the information she now possessed. Back on Earth, President Cruz paced in the Situation Room, surrounded by grim-faced advisors. "We can't let this attack go unanswered. Prepare Omega Squadron for a covert strike. We'll use singularity warheads to wipe Vorian's base off the map." Admiral Trask nodded, already formulating the mission parameters. But as he turned to leave, an aide burst into the room, face pale. "Madam President, we have a problem. Someone leaked details of the Omega Squadron mission. Vorian's agents have captured the strike team." Cruz slammed her fist on the table. "How is this possible? Who—" She stopped short, realization dawning. Johnson. It had to be her. As Earth's leaders grappled with the hostage crisis, Maya found herself pulled deeper into the web of consequences spawned by her actions. She knew the next moves would be crucial, but the path forward remained treacherously unclear. In the depths of space, Zara raced against time, desperate to warn Rook's operatives of the trap set by Kresh and Antares. But as she approached the coordinates of their mission, a sinking feeling told her she might already be too late. Maya's heart raced as she watched the news unfold. The captured Omega Squadron, their faces taut with tension, appeared on the screen as Vorian's pawns. President Cruz's retaliation had backfired spectacularly. "This is my fault," Maya whispered, her fingers trembling as she reached for her comm device. Within hours, she found herself in a high-security briefing room, facing down President Cruz, Admiral Trask, and a cadre of grim-faced officials. Cruz's voice was ice. "Dr. Johnson, your actions have endangered our operatives and compromised national security." Maya stood her ground. "Madam President, I have a solution, one that could neutralize Kresh's micro-singularity without further bloodshed." She laid out her plan, detailing the intricacies of seeding an artificial Einstein-Rosen bridge. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Admiral Trask leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "It's risky, but it could work. I say we greenlight it." Cruz's objections were overruled, and within days, a multinational team led by Maya and the Arcturian scientist Varn Colaris began construction on the orbital facility. As they worked, alarms blared. "Incoming hostiles!" a technician shouted. "It's Antares and Kresh!" Chaos erupted as the assault began. Laser fire scorched the station's hull, and gravity fluctuations sent equipment flying. In the midst of the mayhem, a familiar face appeared. Zara, her eyes wild with urgency. "Dr. Johnson, we need to move the core components now," she yelled over the din. Together, they raced through the facility, Zara providing cover as they evacuated crucial parts of the bridge generator. But their success was short-lived. Antares cornered them, his alien features contorted with rage. "Zara, you traitorous worm!" Time seemed to slow as Zara turned to Maya, a sad smile on her face. "Finish it," she whispered, before lunging at Antares. Maya watched in horror as Zara grappled with the ambassador, her fingers flying over the bridge activation console. A burst of energy, a scream cut short, and Zara crumpled to the ground. Grief threatened to overwhelm Maya, but the rapidly destabilizing micro-singularity demanded her full attention. She and Colaris worked in perfect sync, their hands dancing over the controls as they guided the singularity towards the dimensional rift. "Now," Colaris shouted. Maya slammed the final sequence home. The bridge flared to life, a swirling vortex of impossible geometry. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent rush of power, the micro-singularity vanished into the rift. In the aftermath, Maya stood before a sea of cameras and microphones. "Today marks a new era," she declared, "one where we harness gravity not for destruction, but for the betterment of all species." As she spoke of the newly proposed interstellar bridge project, Maya's mind drifted to the future. Unknown to her, light years away, Dr. Kresh hunched over a makeshift workbench, his eyes gleaming with madness as he whispered to shadowy figures gathered around him. "With these plans," he hissed, holding up a data crystal, "we'll bring the galaxy to its knees." Maya's declaration of a new era echoed through the airwaves, but the galactic landscape shifted beneath her feet. As the interstellar bridge project gained momentum, drawing brilliant minds from across known space, a sinister undercurrent threatened to unravel it all. In her lab aboard the orbital facility, Maya pored over gravitational harmonics data when her secured comm unit chirped. Admiral Trask's hologram materialized, his face grim. "Doctor, we've intercepted encrypted transmissions. Kresh has resurfaced." Maya's blood ran cold. "Where?" "He's made contact with the Eurylian sovereignty, offering them gravity weapon schematics." The implications hit her like a physical blow. The Eurylians, militant separatists rebelling against Arcturian rule, armed with such destructive potential, it was a powder keg waiting to ignite. "We need to act," Trask continued, his voice hard. "A preemptive strike." "No," the new voice cut through the transmission. President Kessler, Earth's recently elected leader, stepped into view. "We can't risk further escalation. Containment is our best option." Maya watched the two leaders debate, her mind racing. Neither solution felt right, but before she could voice her concerns, alarms blared throughout the facility. "Unauthorized launch detected," a technician shouted. It's Omega Squadron." Chaos erupted as they scrambled to make sense of the situation. Reports flooded in of a massive strike against the Eurylian homeworld. Not an official action, but a rogue operation led by Zhukov, a bitter Omega Squadron survivor. Hours later, Maya stared at the view screen in horror. The Eurylian capital lay in ruins, millions dead or displaced. A miscalculation in the gravity weapon deployment had caused catastrophic collateral damage. She turned away, bile rising in her throat. This was not the future she had envisioned when she started the interstellar bridge project. Not a bridge between worlds, but a chasm of destruction. In the days that followed, Maya made her decision. She could no longer be part of a system that allowed such devastation. Under cover of night, she slipped away from the orbital facility, leaving behind only a brief resignation. Months passed as Maya found her way to the Vesta Collective, a group of scientists dedicated to terraforming dying worlds. Here, she thought, she could make a real difference without the specter of weaponized gravity looming over her work. On a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant, Maya calibrated the massive planet crusher array. The operation was risky, compressing the gas giant's outer layers to spark fusion and create a new star. As energy levels climbed, alarms shrieked. "Gravitational flux destabilizing," her assistant shouted. "We're approaching micro-singularity thresholds." Maya's fingers flew across the console, her mind racing. She input a series of commands, modulating the system's gravitational harmonics, using fringe metric distortion equations she had developed during her interstellar bridge work. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, agonizingly, the numbers stabilized. Crisis averted. As Maya slumped in relief, a shadow fell across her console. She looked up to see Navras, Varn Colaris's former protege, his eyes gleaming with barely held-back malice. "Dr. Johnson," he purred, raising a singularity projector. "Your gravimetric data, if you please." Before Maya could react, the facility rocked with explosions. Navras had sabotaged their resonance dampeners. As chaos erupted around them, Maya saw her chance. She lunged for an emergency escape pod, sealing herself inside as Navras's weapon discharged. The pod jettisoned into space, tumbling end over end. As Maya fought to regain control, she glimpsed the Vesta facility through the viewport, wreathed in gravitational distortions. To the rest of the galaxy, it would appear utterly destroyed. She plotted a course for the nearest habitable world, her mind already formulating a plan. Kresh was out there, escalating tensions and arming extremists. Someone had to stop him. As her pod streaked through the void, Maya activated a heavily encrypted channel. "This is Johnson," she transmitted. "I need to speak with the Vesta Underground. We have work to do." Maya's encrypted transmission crackled through the void, reaching the hidden frequencies of the Vesta Underground. Within hours, she found herself aboard a nondescript freighter, surrounded by a motley crew of scientists and operatives. Their eyes burned with perseverance, matching the fire in Maya's own. "We've tracked Kresh to the Zorvian Nebula," a grizzled operative named Kira briefed her. "He's gathering mercenaries for some kind of auction." Maya's mind raced. An auction? For what? Intel suggests gravity weapons, possibly worse. The plan came together quickly. Maya and a select team would infiltrate the gathering, posing as hired guns interested in Kresh's wares. As they approached the nebula's swirling gases, Maya donned her disguise, a battered exosuit and an expression of cold indifference. The mercenary camp sprawled across an asteroid's cratered surface. Maya's team dispersed, blending seamlessly with the rough crowd. She scanned faces, searching for Kresh. A hush fell over the assembly as a figure took the stage. Dr. Zillion Kresh, his eyes gleaming with madness, raised his arms. "Gentlemen," he called out, his voice carrying an unsettling excitement, "today, I offer you the power to reshape worlds." Maya's breath caught as Kresh unveiled his prizes. Compact singularity projectors, their cores pulsing with awe-inspiring energy. But it was his next revelation that truly chilled her. "And for our premium buyers," Kresh purred, "detailed schematics of Earth's defensive grid, their weak points laid bare." The bidding frenzy erupted, a cacophony of shouts and counteroffers. Through the crowd, Maya spotted a familiar face. Zhukov, the rogue Omega Squadron leader, his scarred visage twisted in hunger for the weapons. She tapped her comm unit twice, the prearranged signal. Vesta operatives moved into position, preparing to shut down the auction. But before they could act, a firefight exploded at the far end of the cavern. Chaos engulfed the gathering. Laser fire crisscrossed the air as rival factions turned on each other. Maya fought her way toward Kresh, who was frantically inputting commands into a control panel. "It's over, Kresh!" she shouted over the din. The scientist sneered, slamming his hand down on a final button. "For all of us, perhaps." Alarms blared. The singularity cores began to pulse erratically, their containment fields fluctuating wildly. Maya's mind raced. There was only one option, insane as it was. She pulled out the modified Vesta tech she'd been working on in secret, a prototype gravity funnel based on metric distortion lensing. Her fingers flew over the controls, calibrating on the fly. The device hummed to life, generating a swirling vortex of gravimetric energy. The unstable singularities were drawn in, compressing into a single point of unimaginable density. "We need to move," Maya screamed to her team. "Now!" They fought their way to a maintenance shaft, plunging into the nebula's roiling atmosphere. Gravitational shock waves buffeted them as they rode the turbulence down to a rogue moon's surface. As they emerged gasping, Maya's scanners shrieked a warning. The compressed singularity was destabilizing rapidly. She interfaced with the surviving Vesta network, mind working furiously. There, a galactic navigation beacon, its gravimetric signature a lifeline. "I need every ounce of power you can give me," Maya ordered, setting up her equipment. Energy crackled as she initiated a focused gravitational implosion. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as an Einstein-Rosen bridge flickered into existence. "Now!" Maya yelled. With a collective effort, they hurled the singularity containment unit into the wavering portal. It vanished in a flash of light as the wormhole collapsed behind it. Silence fell. Maya looked around at her battered team, acutely aware of those who hadn't made it. The cost had been staggering, but they had succeeded. Billions of lives across inhabited systems had been saved. As the adrenaline faded, Maya became aware of a searing pain in her side. She looked down to see her suit torn, blood seeping through. "We need to get you to a medic," Kira said, supporting her. Maya nodded weakly, her mind already racing ahead. Kresh had escaped again, but his plans lay in ruins. More importantly, the gravity wars had entered a new phase. It was time for diplomacy, for binding accords between Earth and the Arcturians. As consciousness began to fade, Maya clung to a singular thought. The Interstellar Bridge project could rise again, built on the hard-won knowledge of containing singularities and traversing space-time. It would be a long road, but for the first time in years, hope glimmered on the horizon.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.